parish bell rings after lights out, a single iron note that doesn't belong to prayer. In the orphan dormitory, a lamp gutters, then decides against courage. Straw rustles. Small hands learn how to be still. At the far end, the door to the infirmary breathes once and forgets to breathe again. He comes wrapped in oiled cloth, hat brim low, a leather beak pitted like old coins. The case he sets down gives a soft chime, as if something inside it keeps its own time. The weakest first, he whispers kindness shaped like instruction, chosen for a cure. Names are spoken in voices that have not finished growing. A girl with a winter cough. A boy who counts by tapping the bed rail. Twins who share a blanket and a fear of the dark. He ties tags to wrists with quiet string and teaches them a small trick. Inhale when the sensor swings left. Exhale when it returns. The smoke tastes of vinegar in church. Down the corridor, the matron prays with a door between her and mercy. The lock looks busy. The bell never rings twice. 3 beds cool quickly. The other children memorize how not to ask. In the ledger he opened on a stool, full names begin the line and initials finish it, neat as stitches. Outside, the alley learns a new sound. A wooden cart rolling without hurry, as if it had all the permission it needed. London. 1349. The parish house keeps too many children and too few blankets. Soup thins as the days grow louder with coughing. The matron learns to pray between chores. When the physician appears at the vestry royal cloak, quiet manners. A black book held like a missile he speaks the language, tired people, trust, order, cleanliness, a sacred preservation for the frail. He asks for a corner of the dormitory to become an infirmary, linen screens to tame drafts, bowls of vinegar to sweeten the air, candles trimmed low so light behaves. He counts pulses with 2 steady fingers and writes full names in a neat hand. Then he draws a line through each and writes the initials instead. To protect reputations, he says. And the matron nods, because reputations still buy bread. The children practice his little catechism. Breathe with the censor. Swallow when told. Lie very still so the cure can find you. He praises obedience as courage and chooses a few to rest where the smoke works best. He calls them the chosen, a word that makes weak hearts feel like important keys after Compline. The parish gate is barred, but doors inside the house discover other purposes. The physician keeps the dormitory quiet by teaching it a clock. The censers swing, the candles sigh, the soft note his case gives whenever he opens it. The matron sits with her rosary at the end of the hall and pretends not to count how long the infirmary door stays closed on a stool. The ledger learns the children's sizes the way a tailor learns shoulders. Names narrowed to initials. Initials aligned to tidy numerals. Little verbs fill the seam between expose, turn, .com. When a cough wants to argue, he lowers the wick. When a tear wants to win, he shows a handkerchief that has never been used twice. He promises the chosen will return to their beds before dawn, stronger for the discipline. The others repeat the rule until it becomes bedtime. In the alley behind the parish wall, a cart practices not making sound. Inside, the lamp learns to die in a way that looks like good manners. And in the book, a clean page waits for the morning so someone can write that everything proceeded correctly, except for the beds that cooled. Asterisk, asterisk, he arrived between chores, when the floor was still damp from scrubbing and the soup had not decided whether to be a meal. The matron met him with sleeves rolled and a prayer pinned behind her teeth. He bowed like a man entering choir, set his case on a stool, and opened his black book to a page that made the room look tidier just by existing. We'll spare the little ones the draft, he said, voice even as a ruler. Linen screens rose like quiet fences. Bowls of vinegar took their places as if they had always lived on those crates. He trimmed the lamp until its light lay flat and polite. Noise invites fever. Light invites panic. We'll keep both at the door. He learned the dormitory the way a tailor learns a body. He moved among beds that had names stitched into blankets by hands that were not coming back. 2 fingers to each wrist, a count that never wavered, a note in the margin, steady, tremor, shallow. He praised stillness as bravery and taught a small catechism to those who shook. Breathe with the censer. Swallow on the word now. Hold the eyes where the flame is smallest. The matron signed the ledger with the cross instead of a name and gave him the key to the infirmary. Only an hour, she said, meaning mercy can be timed. 1 interval, he agreed, which is how clocks pretend to be kind. He chose the first 3 with the confidence of a man who had already rehearsed their obedience. The girl with the winter cough that folded neatly. The boy who counted by tapping. One of the twins whose fear arrived on schedule. Chosen for a cure, he told them, and the words wore a little light so they would not be afraid of the dark. Inside the screened corner, he lowered the wick and set the censer swinging. Tags were tied to wrists with quiet, stringful names on the first line, initials on the second, tidy numerals waiting their turn. To protect reputations, he explained. And the matron nodded as if protection could be stored like flour. He taught the room to behave. Blankets smoothed. Breaths braided to the chains, soft tick, silence trimmed to fit. At the door, the lamp outside rehearsed dying, and the hallway learned to walk softer. The book contained everything it needed to remember Nicias patient in the left column, times obedient in the right. And between them, the verbs that make sorrow sound like procedure. Asterisk, asterisk, he made selection feel like a blessing. Only those the smoke will spare, he said, and the phrase fit small ears better than truth. The censor's chain set a clock the parish had never owned. On each leftward sweep, he touched a wrist. On each return, he wrote a mark. The book learned to divide the room the way streets divide a city, here for the steady, there for the suggestible dot. He spoke to the matron with a kindness that tidied questions. We protect reputations by using initials, he reminded, drawing a careful line through a full name and replacing it with 2 letters that behaved. They'll be back in their beds before dawn, God willing. God was always willing when someone else kept the time. The 3 chosen lay beneath the lowered lamp, wide the way windows are before rain. He shortened the world to instructions they could own. Breathe on the swing. Swallow one now, follow the wick, count to 5, and let the breath decide. When fear opened its mouth, he gave it work hold. The ribbon touched the cross shadow. Watch the smoke make a ring. Obedience arrived like sleep. Behind the screen, he taught the room to forget corners. The lamp thinned until light felt like manners. A bowl of vinegar breathed faint thunder. His voice softened, not out of mercy, but because whispers travel truer. We are teaching the cough to leave, he said, and the girl with the winter chest watched her ribs learn a slower story. The twin looked for his brother's hand and found the string on his own wrist. Instead, pulled it once, twice, then set it down when the chain told him to. He visited the beds in a circuit that never crossed itself. Wrist, wick, book, word, draft, book. Hush, laid like cloth across a thought that wanted to stand. When the boy who counted began to count wrong, he praised him for the effort and altered the rhythm so the mistake became the rule. The ledger received the victory as calm dash repeat. At the hall's end, footsteps approached and decided to be memory. The matron sat with her rosary and scolded the beads for not answering faster. He opened the door a finger's width and let reassurance escape like steam. First interval complete, he said. The phrase suited both prayer and arithmetic. He closed the door again and the latch found its hem. On the stool, the book warmed under his hand. Initials lined up like children before grace. Times behaved. Small verbs kept everyone from admitting they were afraid. Second interval, he told the smoke, and the smoke, well taught, chose not to disagree. He renamed the screened corner a chapel so fear would kneel. The lamp sank to a thumbnail of fire. Shadows learned to speak in gestures only he understood. He arranged the bowls, the folded cloths, the small glass vials that never caught too much light. Nothing glinted. Everything obeyed. "Hold the ribbon," he told the girl, laying a red strip across her palms so her hand would have a job besides trembling. "Follow the flame," he told the twin, trimming the wick until it walked instead of ran. To the boy who counted, he offered a new arithmetic. The chain's arc was 1, the return 2, the pause rest. Soon their breaths arrived where he wanted them, and the room discovered it could hum without noise. He wrote while they learned initials left, times right, the same small verbs between, expose, turn, calm. When space narrowed, he used marks that meant more than words and less than names. The page pleased him. The page did not argue. A knock traveled down the corridor like a thought that had changed its mind. He opened the door a finger's width. The matron's worry shone like a coin held too long. "They're quiet now," he said, and quiet sounded like progress. She pressed a palm to the doorpost as if that could bless the air. "God, keep them," she whispered. "Discipline will," he answered, and shut the gap gently, the latch singing its small amen. He taught the cough to miss its cue. He taught eyes to rest where he pointed. He taught the lamp to behave until even flame seemed grateful. When a tear grew large enough to fall, he redirected it with a word. "After," he promised, and after turned into a place no one could find. From the dormitory came a rustle, the sound of children practicing not to ask. He let that lesson spread. In the chapel that was not a chapel, he wound the censer once, twice, and watched the smoke discover a staircase in the air. "Brave," he said, touching each wrist with 2 fingers that kept their own steady clock. "You are learning." He straightened a tag that had shifted, then replaced its full name with the initials already printed above. "To protect you," he said, and the letters looked obedient enough to be true. He boxed a mark in the margin his favorite hand, drew a small arrow no one else would notice. It pointed to the end of the line, where the page turned and the story did not. "Third interval," he told the room. The room proved it understood by offering him exactly what he loved. Breath measured, light tamed, and a silence that stayed when asked. Outside, the parish bell decided not to ring. Inside, a cartwheel remembered how to wait. Asterisk wind worried the shutters until the dormitory whispered back. Somewhere in the hall, a bucket settled like a sigh. He left the chapel that wasn't, with a ledger balanced on his palm, its page warm as if listening. On the left, initials behaved. On the right, times agreed. Between them, the small verbs that make fear look tidy: expose, turn, calm, repeat, at the gate, to the yard. A choir boy, trotting messages for the curate, caught a loose sheet, blowing like a timid bird. Columns of letters and numbers marched across it. At the bottom, a neat box his favorite tringed a single mark, and a thin arrow pointed toward a sketch of the parish with a lane shaded darker than the rest. The boy brought it to the matron, who read the way a mother reads bad weather. "Procedures," the physician said, gently behind her, as if the word were wool, "to protect their reputations." She wanted to argue with the word there, and found no breath to spend. He returned the sheet to the ledger and smoothed it down with a gloved hand that made everything seem already decided. "One more interval," he said. "Then the chosen will be stronger." Midnight chose not to be noticed. The censor's chain spoke for it. 1, 2, 1. The chapel learned to hum without moving. He selected 3 more to rest where the smoke works best. Children whose obedience fit the hinges of his book. The lamp outside the infirmary died by degrees, each smaller than the last, until the hall forgot it had light at all. From the alley came a sound the parish had not taught itself to hear, a cartwheel considering a knot in the boards, then moving on. The choir boy, curious and too quick, reached the side door as the latch remembered how to be quiet. He saw only smoke slipping out like a tame animal and the suggestion of a rope arranged to learn a lesson later. Back to bed, the matron said, because orders are blankets when truth has none. She stood at the infirmary door with the key heavy in her hand and did not turn it. They're resting, he told her, showing the ledger's fresh line of initials as proof that something careful was happening. Proof travels faster than children. In the chapel, the girl's ribbon lay still. The twin watched the flame walk and forgot to look for his brother's hand. The boy who counted finished the set without tapping. He praised them in the tone a priest uses at the rail. He boxed another mark and drew a small arrow no one else would notice. It pointed to a clean space waiting for departure. When the bell in the tower tried a single note and lost interest, he closed the ledger with the respect of a lid, finding its jar. Second interval complete, he murmured to the room that had learned his manners. In the alley, the cart agreed by not hurrying. Inside, the matron listened for a cue that would not come and told her beads a story about morning. Dawn unstitched the dark without daring to enter the room. The matron stood at the infirmary door with the key hot in her palm and chose courage that looked like disobedience. The latch complained softly. The screen inside did not. The chapel that wasn't had arranged itself to be believed. Blankets lay without creases. Bowls were rinsed and turned mouth down like obedient mouths. The lamp was a memory holding still. On the stool, the ledger waited open, warm as bread. Left column, initials that fit any story. Right column, times that agreed with themselves. Between them, expose, turn, calm. At the bottom, his neat, boxed mark and a small arrow pointing off the page. Children, she called, the word too big for the room. Silence answered with good manners. She found the ribbon coiled into a patient circle. She found a bed that had taught itself not to need a body. She found a breadcrumb of soot on the floor that led not to the door but to the side passage, where crates made a narrow corridor, and the wall remembered how to let a cart discover patience. The choir boy arrived with a courage he hadn't promised to anyone. I heard wheels, he said, as if sound were a witness. Together they reached the yard. Boards kept their secrets. The gate, which should have been bolted, pretended it had never learned how. He was gone before the tower chose its first note. Along the lane, a dust that wasn't dust settled. Settled vinegar, smoke, the politeness of departure. He carried the ledger he hadn't needed to take. The copy he left behind was good enough to convince the parish that discipline had done its work. They rested, it said without saying it. They are protected, it meant without meaning it. By noon, the story fit. Fever had eased. Procedure had been followed. 3 beds had gone unused by accident and would be filled tonight by other names. The matron folded the ribbon into her apron and said prayer where she wanted to say loss. The curate thanked Providence for a ritual that spared the many. The choir boy kept a page he'd found in the yard, because paper sometimes remembers what adults decide to forget. Miles away, a cart rolled past a parish that would soon learn a new rule about silence. A physician with a beak mask paused beneath a lintel and weighed a key that wasn't his. The weakest first, he whispered to a door that liked to listen. Somewhere, a bell practiced ringing only once. If this tale unsettled you, like the video and subscribe to the Macabre Physician more historical horror cases each week.